Well, hello there, everyone. Here, show you right here is like a talk about from what we do know, from what we don't know, and this actually talks about right here, talk about codes. And I know that like you talk about for like the basics about Dreamweaver though, but whenever I'm gonna be working like in the classroom, or if it's gonna be like say on other your source about your practice activities of some sort, and I thinking about necessarily to like for codes. And I look at it as like a kind of language. I know like with anybody that whenever they're going to be working a program and thinking that one of those codes that more likely could include anything that's located like on a keyboard, such as maybe a minus or parenthesis or bracket marks or anything like that, closing tabs or anything like that. And one of those could be for like the properties tab, or maybe the body, then the navigation keys, stuff like that. And and I know like with like codes though that I guess ways that we can maybe describe codes is like a language, if we want to look at it, as to where that like if it's going to be like for style CSS, or maybe for the for like any HTML documents and based on like for Dreamweaver. And I keep thinking though necessarily to where that I know like it's pretty confusing for anybody who's, especially if you're still trying to learn the basics of it. And you're like wondering to where that that the best ways of how to learn it may be using photographs. It's like you can place different photographs onto like a onto a an index and it like a CSS or an index document or some sort. You'll get some practice with it. And I don't know, I'm like that really that with anybody that they may say is to just kind of experiment around with it or go through like the basic training. And the way I think about though is like really that if you want to go ahead and go through the basic training, they would basically you would be able to basically get introduced to how it works, compared to like if you actually do some practices with it. So I don't know, Mike, if anybody were to be using any type of documents or any type of graphics that they that they were wanting to use, and then be able to get some more practices with it. But then on your hand too, talk about for codes though, is that we weren't to where that like other than like Facebook, to where that you're used to uploading a file and then going through all the other settings about anything that you want to edit, to where it's like what would you do, and it's like where were you at, like you were at an event with your friends or anything like that. And like Dreamweaver that you would have access to, like you have right here on the left, would be like a code, like if you want to call it like a code for like a bitmap or something like that, where a lot of things from what you're working on, and then working with the live view right here. So anybody that may wonder to where that that I tend to get confused, but like with anybody that if they're familiar with like Dreamweaver, that you're like warned to where that knowing about like you have to talk about the float, and as well as the navigation, and as well as the images, and how all that other stuff works. And I guess that like the source codes as to where how we can explain to where that about how that all works. And this right here will be a new photo I went and taken right here ever since my 32nd birthday. And I have right here from Matthew Sean McGuire, age 32, with my Photoshop work right here. So, and I know like with any type of graphic designing that we may have seen it as to where that you may have seen it to where that a lot it had contained a lot of shapes, and as well as maybe color contrast or anything like that, or anything related to like the programs that were created on, is like if it says anything in particular, such as maybe a big uppercase and lowercase letter that maybe it's a position diagonally or anything like that. So like with any kind of designing is to where that basically is to where that if you want to go in, I can include a theme right here. This right here will be me right here standing, and then the right here have right here is a flag right here. So this right here, like with anybody right now, don't really contain any background. But if there was like a background, and then more likely that a subject could be used to where me standing on vacation or something like that. Yeah, so I guess there's other sources of ways of how we can do like what you call creative design, artwork or so. So right now that I guess these if I want to look at this right here, is to where that if I want to kind of give this like a name, it's like other than like say maybe like a type of a Photoshop work, that the type of images that don't contain really too much of a background, it's like maybe like a painting a painted cross hatching, or if you want to just call it like a like a painted background. And I know like anybody that may want to where that where is the background, but I'm like, well, I did not really include too much of a background right here, mainly working with pictures and making them look nice, and it's like just kind of recognize the pictures especially, so that like knowing about like if there's like a particular name for what we call a photo that does not have a background but just like it's painted. It's just like painted, which you call in 3 different colors. And I know anybody that may want to where that add like a little add a real artistic background in the back. So if anybody wants to where that really, I'm like, would that going to be your next project? But I'm like, really that I pretty much had to start from scratch here to where I had to collect a number of pieces just to be able to put them together, just to introduce everybody to like, hey, this is what I do, this is what I'm learning. But this right here is a picture that I went and took with my camera right here, and edited a little bit in Photoshop. And I have right here is my digital designing right here. And like with anybody, that this is what I look like whenever I graduate with my associates. But like with anybody that they weren't, or that if I have maybe 4 years or so completed and weren't, it's like 4 years of more work. It's like from what you do know, what you don't know about anything about between the speaking and the writing, as well as response. And one of those will be say for codes though. So if anybody wants to, or codes, any type of source codes, and if I want to look at it as like a brain, and I know I usually think about it as to like anything that improves the brain power, like for advanced brain power, but talk about with codes. Basically, what are codes necessarily? And I'm not talking about like the cheat codes, but I'm talking about the codes as to where that whenever you key the codes in correctly on like from the keyboard to be worked on like a style CSS document, or if any for like HTML. And I guess I look at those as like the basic controls about as like for how you want the site. This right here was a site right here, and thinking about for any type of texting that I would want to include on the left or the right, and as well as measurements about the pixels and as the inches, as well as the floats and stuff like that. So if anybody wants to where that you basically that you work the controls, and whenever for about almost anything that's going to be changing inside the coding, more like it's going to be changing for like the live view. So that any source of information that we want to where that we may not see very many changes, but then if you're going to be typing something in for the code. So I guess basically that if you want to look at it as to where the codes that they are basically like this the source of language. The language is to where that you're keying in to a document just to be able to perform those updates. So without the codes, then more likely that I guess you can maybe look at as to where an unfinished project, or if it comes to where something that's considered unknown. So you're like Warren to where something that's considered unknown. And and I know with me though that if I were to be cutting this picture out right here, and then more likely that it's like with the codes though, it may show up on the codes on the style CSS your source file is like to where that there's an image right there, but it's just not displaying right here. So you're like Warren to where that could be where I could be a problem. So you're like Warren to where that really that for any type of codes though, and these codes that could be either labeled in alphabetical type order, or any other type of a code that matter that it's like for management, it's like for how it's understood especially. So let's just say that that for the many years from my education from back in the 5th grade, I can remember that we say for talk, answers, and speak and write. So you may say something like hello, my name is Matthew, but then in the codes it could be something like it's like you entering in the closing tabs like hi, my name is Matthew, and then you would add something like HREG or something like that for a code equals, and then parenthesis marks. It's like the type of marks that are located on the keyboard, and I know that I don't even know what all they're called. I'm like, yep, sorry, I don't know what all these codes and what all the keys are called, but but basically is to our understanding about whenever you enter those in, and then basically is to where that gives like Dreamweaver to where it basic controls about for how you want the internet site to be displayed as. So if we want to look at it as like the codes, it's like a source of language. So if anybody were want to use like maybe like a windmobile as example, to where whenever the wind wants to use it to rotate it, and then whenever the whenever the wind speed starts to pick up, and that's whenever the windmobile starts to move faster. So you're like Warren, to where necessarily to where that the wind coming from the east or from the west or so. But on your hand, that the basic controls about is like for understanding about the codes, and I'm like Warren, to where I know it's confusing because that if we want to go ahead and give like pick like a color group right here, like you have right here is the blue and the green, but like in the codes though, it could be labeled something such as code number K PT CX5 or something like that. So it goes by say that like the color the source codes for the color groups. And I guess that some of those, I guess, are what you call directed, from other, sites. Like if it's, if you're going to be, getting that, from maybe from the library or some sort. So I really don't know how it all works necessarily, but what I'm assuming though is to where that you're collecting that information by the codes, from the groups, from any links that are collected from other from that from the library, just to be able to get updated into Dreamweaver. So whenever we look at this right here and thinking necessarily to where that you would think that about almost everything would be the same, such as between the red, white, blue, orange, yellow, and white, but then on your hand too, you're going to have to where that these groups, these source codes, be measured like say different groups. So that really that I guess it's all a matter about text studying and understanding about how it all works necessarily. So whenever I look at this right here and like Warren to like any type of language that Michael give it, and you're like Warren to where that like the closing tabs for the header and in the footer, and as well as for anything that is related to like the navigation keys, and as well as with the backgrounds, and as any other side, any other types of you say for the navigations, as well as like for the tabs. But basically that like the hope is like for like any type of codes, for any type of coding that if anybody were wondering to where really what's the difference between a Microsoft Word and then a Dreamweaver, and you're like wondering to where that that you may use a little bit of those codes for like you say for maybe Microsoft Word, you type up a document and you may go ahead and choose like a font that you want to use, and like hey, you give it like a subject matter and type in 3 or 4 paragraphs or so. But really that the only time that I would think that it would probably need to have a code would be is to where that if you're going to be importing maybe a file maybe from another program of some sort, or maybe and then maybe a shortcut tab, or maybe if you want to include like maybe a link to another site, that you may need to have a code just to do that. So if anybody were like Warren to where that any documents that you want to share, or any documents that you want to put together, and thinking about, hey, check out this this gallery or this website here, and then more likely that they may need to have a code. You may need to have a code like a link code, just to be able to copy and paste that in there, just to be able to for those people to go directly to that page. So that's just the way I think about those, to where that codes though, they could maybe be a number of things other than the language, maybe about the ways about for directions, if you want to call it maybe the directions, as well as for the for anything that is related to like, okay, we have this, okay, well, what do you want to do with it? Okay, the direction it needs to go. So like with anybody that really, we may not see very many arrows pointing from the left or right, or maybe to east or west or so with these codes, but on the other hand, that I guess if you want to look at it, as to where like any type of like the way is just the way that how the program, and then between your brain as well as from the mind you're thinking, is like for how the program functions. So think about it, to where all these things, about 4 or 5 things are happening within the amount of seconds, and you're like thinking about it to where, okay, what do you want to do now? Oh, okay, do you want to go ahead and move forward? Okay, do you got to go back, change something? So it seems like a lot of times that, like, understanding about codes though, a lot of times I always thought about codes though was a matter about cheat codes. So if anybody wanted to, or cheat codes, like, and yeah, the type of codes like on a video game, it's like a codes on a game to where you enter those in and they give you extra powers, or they give you, like, say, that source of means to where that they allow you to to play a game and beat a level. It's like much easier. But like with this type of coding right here, basically is knowing about, it's like for the program, like for how that the browsers correspond, between the browser and is like with the program. So when we collect these codes and use those, then I guess we would like to say for any type of designers is that they would need to know exactly about as to where that with these files zone, whenever they're advertised live, is thinking about is to where that how the codes are set just to be able to present the viewers to where that this is what they see. And I don't know, like with anybody that they may want to where that, yeah, they see the photo, but then they're trying to locate, they're trying to locate maybe a spot where they can complete, like, say, I would like to contact this person, or I would like to know a little bit more about their gallery, or maybe if it's ask them a question or some sort. So anybody that may want, or that, yeah, that you may see this right here for, like, the index name, but then it shows blank, but then by the time you update it, and then it shows right here's a picture right here. So anybody that may want to tour, whenever you see this right here, and like want to tour that okay, well, we want to know what school that you went to, what school did you go to, like, well, a little bit more about your portfolios, and as well as that where are the places that you visited within the last 6 months, or another question or concern and matter could be as to where that we want to see some more clip art of your work, maybe in Microsoft Paint. So I know that a lot of things that you do not include on one assignment, like on the codes, though, if you have a few viewers that they look at it and check it out, then they're like warrantor that hey, that the codes, though, I can, hey, that we want to see some more examples of this or that. So, but on the other hand, that like with codes, though, that whenever we want to look at those as like maybe all the above, as to where it's a type of language, but then on your hand too, it's a type of it's like, if you want to call it like your keywords, as to where that this is basically from what you're telling the site. The telling the site is to where that if you want to start the new page, you would need to include something like maybe a new tab, say for the closing tab, and as well as if you want to do any editing and maybe add in a color or so. So it's quite a bit confusing, but and I know, like with anybody's tour, that you really just, it seems like the truth of the matter is you really had to have at least maybe 500 or so hours of practice time, and plus about maybe 2,000 or so hours, I say, of the actual professional working it's like a working skill, to where you have to have a number of hours of training just to really understand all of it. But then on your hand, that you're like warrant, or like anybody that may warrant, or that you may understand it just a little bit, but then knowing about, you look at the work right here and like thinking about it, it's like, yeah, that the last time it's been updated is whenever that there is a source code that contained only just a certain amount of information. So whenever people visit my site one of these days, they may see this stuff right here, but then they're kind of want to know just a little bit more detail about as to where, hey, did you graduate yet? Or hey, what kind of job did you get? And as well as you have right here is that me standing right here with the American flag, and like warrant to where, hey, are you going to add any backgrounds to there? So really, the question goes by as to where, what all do people really want to see so far as my work goes? So anybody that may warrant to where that, yeah, that you would think necessarily to where a lot of that stuff that was updated on the codes, but on your hand too, sometimes that they take more than 90 minutes just to be able to update it. So it's like warrant to where, like with anybody that they warrant to about that, about from what we do know and what we don't know, is like for Matthew speaking and right, is that from what he learned about for understanding about how the codes and how the weather programs work. But sometimes we warn to where that any changes that more likely that could be made on the file though, and you're like warned to where that more likely those updates can be performed, but then knowing about with those clients though, those clients is knowing about is that yeah that the portfolio may have only included so much information, but then on your hand that you're like warned to where what's the purpose about codes though? With codes, and I usually look at it as to where from how you speak and as like how you write, and as well as from what the for how you want the program to work, for the information that you're trying to work with, that you're trying to manage, and what you're trying to provide as well, and from what the program is trying to understand about what you're trying to do. So that's usually the way I present it, like for codes as well. But anyway, but they have a talk about from Matthew 25. It's like for as well also it's like for Matthew 31 to be found on screencast as well. But other than that, thanks for watching. Have a great day.